I cannot believe it has already been 6 months since we started our Z build. Now that it's officially finished, we figured it was a good time to do a full recap of every single mod we did to our Nissan Z. Welcome back to Vivid Racing, I'm Aaron, and if you don't know, we started this build with a 100% bone stock 2023 Boulder Gray Nissan Z. So before we had our Boulder Gray Z, there was a yellow Z Proto that we had made a few videos with. That wasn't our car, but we were able to use it to develop our in-house products. And we also used it to test fit a bunch of wheels to figure out different fitments and things. And on that car, we ended up putting a set of our VR Forged DO3Rs. So those are all of our own products, and we'll expound on those a little bit later. I'm just trying to lay out the background so you guys can get up to speed on how we got here. So while the Proto was here, we obviously put some wheels on it, but we also ended up installing the APEXi RS Evo exhaust system. And that was kind of our first real taste of doing bolt-on mods with this new Z. And that's kind of what opened the door to buying our own Z and taking on a full project car. So the plan for our Z was to take our OEM Plus concept that we use in Porsche 911s and apply that to the RZ34 platform, which, really quick side note, we made a couple of 911 videos that go through this OEM Plus build process. We did a 991.1 and a .2. Both were turbo cars, and it was mental how much power those cars gained with just a couple of bolt-ons. It was like well over 100 horsepower and almost 200 foot-pounds of torque. That's my first real introduction to 911s. Like I've always known they're great cars, but absolutely blew my mind. Now circling back, the overall concept of OEM Plus isn't to completely change the car, but it is to enhance what the car already does really well. So that essentially means we're gonna focus on bolt-on mods such as intakes, exhausts, coilovers, and of course some cosmetics like wheels and aero bits. And then the cherry on top is to tie all of that together with some sort of tune, whether it's a custom ECU flash or one of our tuning boxes. Oh, and if any of the parts I talk about today interest you, there are links in the description below. And there's also a special discount code for our YouTube viewers only, so make sure to grab that discount code and save some pennies in your pockets. If you like watching these build videos, make sure you are subscribed and hit that notification bell so you don't miss a single thing. First and foremost, obviously we had to put some VR Forged wheels on the car. Wildly enough, the wheels that come on the car from the factory are actually like surprisingly good. They are a forged wheel from Volk Racing, and we love Volk, so there's no hate there whatsoever. They're just not VR Forged. And considering this was our full-on project car, we figured it was a good time to design a set of custom wheels for the Z. The design was based off of our DO3R, and then it was kind of meshed together with inspiration from like a heritage, like old school motorsport look, and then it was properly named the DO3R MS. I think the wheels fit the car really well with like the red accent, but it doesn't, like they don't blend into the car either. Like I think they are a statement piece that matches the car really well. Then for fitment, we went with a staggered setup. On the fronts, they're 19 by 9.5 with a 22 millimeter offset. And on the rears, it was a 19 by 10.5 with a 12 millimeter offset. And to complete the look, the wheels are wrapped in some Falcon tires. They are 255 40s on the front and 275 35s on the rear. All right, the next on the list was swapping out the exhaust. So we were really lucky to try a handful of different exhausts for the Z. So if you remember on the yellow Z Proto, we did that APEXi exhaust, and that was definitely an upgrade from stock, but overall, I would say that exhaust is pretty tamed, especially compared to the rest that we tried. That being said, the APEXi exhaust is a solid option for someone who just wants more of a refined sound without going crazy with the noise levels. I would call it very HOA friendly. And then moving on to our Z, the first full system we installed was the Armytrix Valvetronic exhaust and their high flow catted downpipes. And so I don't remember exactly, so don't quote me on this, but I want to say the Armytrix system is a 2.75 inch exhaust, and the factory exhaust is like 2.25 or maybe 2.5 or something. But either way, it definitely allowed for more effective airflow. That factory exhaust is basically a straw. I love this exhaust system, and looking at it, it's just a piece of art. The build quality and finish of the exhaust is killer. And most importantly, it absolutely sounded better than it looked. There really is something to be said about upgrading the downpipes though. Those play a huge part in not just airflow, but the sound of the car. Now, if you plan on upgrading your downpipes or switching to a valved exhaust, there are two things you should be aware of. The downpipes are actually pretty difficult to swap out. The biggest trick is to have a lot of patience and a lot of wobble extensions and some magnetic sockets if you got them. Then in terms of adding a valved exhaust, unless they're electronic, you will need to pull vacuum from somewhere in the car. Now, none of this is too hard if you just take your time with it. And then we did end up following up our Armytrix install video with like a detailed explanation from a fundamental point of view in hopes of like helping people get through these hurdles if they're trying to tackle this on their own car. And it's not car specific necessarily. It was just some good fundamental knowledge to be aware of if you're gonna try to tackle this like on your own, in your driveway, on your back. Just try to help you along. Now, I also wanted to say we never removed the Armytrix downpipes once they were installed on the car. And we can confirm that every exhaust following this does match up to them easily as if they were OEM downpipes. Armytrix did a killer job making sure these were an OE fit, and they matched up great with everything we tried it on. So after the Armytrix exhaust, AWE hit us up and wanted us to try their track and touring exhaust suite. Now, there are two main exhausts in this suite. They are both 3-inch stainless steel catback exhausts. There is the Touring Edition and there is the Track Edition. So the cool thing about this suite is that say you bought the Touring Edition and you want to spice things up, but you don't want to buy an entire new exhaust. You can purchase the Touring to Track conversion kit and vice versa. If you purchased the Track Edition kit but want to tame it down a little bit, there is the Track to Touring conversion kit. The conversion kits are axle back. They swap out in literally minutes. Per side, it's one exhaust clamp and then you take it off the hanger. I don't know that it could be any simpler. Shane and I thought it would be fun to make like a little competition out of it. So we timed ourselves to see how quick we could do it. We averaged like 8 minutes a side. So we kind of assumed that from if the car is like on the ground, get the car in jack stands, swap them out, drop the car back down, you could probably do it within 30 minutes. So yeah, Shane and I made a competition out of it and Shane may have been right, but let's just say being right isn't what made the difference. The Track Edition was one of my favorite exhausts out of all the different ones we got to try. It has great tone, it has the right amount of volume, install is super easy, and like I said already, if you want to swap to the conversion kit, it's just a walk in the park. Valves are great, they're really cool, they're fun to use, but anytime I drive a valved car, as soon as I start the car, I just click wide open every single time. I'm admittedly a little bit of a degenerate, so I like loud, obnoxious exhausts. Plus, this whole kit is very reasonably priced. The exhaust plus whichever conversion kit you gotta get is like $1,700 all in. I'm a huge bang for your buck guy. Some people would call it cheap, I call it resourceful. But for a brand new, full 3-inch exhaust plus a conversion kit, I mean, $1,700 that's a pretty good deal for a brand new exhaust. And then to bring it on home, the final exhaust we put on our Z was the VR Performance 3-inch Valvetronic exhaust. The attitude out of this system is intense. When you're ripping this thing around, it sounds like a war zone. I love every second of it. The pops and bangs are so intense and loud. This was genuinely one of the first times that after driving around a little bit, I was like, maybe we could close the valves for a little bit. Because sometimes you're just ready to blend in traffic a little more for, you know, reasons. It still sounds really great with the valves closed. You still get a lot of feedback out of it. It's just more traditional in that sense. And the tone is still really, really good. You just don't stick out like a sore thumb like you were a minute ago when the valves were wide open and you're decelling and it's pop, 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 pop. But I think that wraps up all the exhausts we tried on the Z. We were really lucky to get to try all those. There were a few more that we wanted to try, but all that being said, we were really lucky to try all the ones we did and we made some really cool content out of them. And then one of my favorite additions to the car was the carbon fiber Aero Kit we designed. This is a 7-piece kit. It includes canards, side skirts, a front splitter, rear diffuser, and a beautiful GT4 inspired wing. And yes, this is 100% carbon. There are no cheap plastics here. This is a quality kit that goes on the Z. Everything was really easy to install. You do have to drill a couple of holes on the rear deck lid to mount the wing, but other than that, it's pretty straightforward. And I've said it since day one. The stock body of the Z just feels incomplete to me. And in my humble and obviously biased opinion, because it's our Aero Kit, I think the kit really does fill everything in and makes the car feel complete. So staying on the trend of cosmetics, but diving into performance as well, the suspension was next on the list, and the factory suspension is trash. It was super soft, drove like a boat, and I know it may seem dramatic, but I really don't think it drove like a sports car from the factory, which is absolutely wild considering how great the car can be with just some simple upgrades. Thankfully, our friends at HKS hooked us up with their Hypermax R coilovers, and that drastically and beautifully changed the characteristics of the car. When we installed these, we did get about an inch lower in ride height. Could go a little lower, could go a little higher if we wanted, but we found that this was a comfortable like daily driver ride height. In terms of the adjustable dampening, we set that right in the middle. We didn't want to go too soft, but we also didn't want to go too stiff. We wanted to feel that performance a little bit. We were trying to figure out a unique way to demonstrate how different the car drove with upgraded coilovers versus the factory suspension. The goal was just to really show that difference rather than just say it. Now, the Z has a G-force meter built into the dash, and it draws a line on this little meter to show you the results of your previous drive. But then it dawned on me that we could potentially use this as the tool to be that visual representation of how different the car drove. So the idea we came up with was to map out a route around our office and drive the car before and after installation. And then the goal was to proceed and drive the route in a very, very specific manner. We had planned the speeds, what lane to be in, different turning markers. Our hope was that the G-force meter would be able to show that distinct difference. And I don't know what I expected to see on the graphs. Looking back at it, honestly, it does make sense now, but it just wasn't what I expected. Like I said, I don't know what I expected. I just thought that was kind of cool. Looking back at the video, I do wish I had taken more time to explain the test better. I think we could have done quite a bit more with it. Now, in terms of engine bolt-ons, it was very important for us to stay true to that OEM Plus concept. Like I said before, our goal was to simply enhance and improve what the car already does really well. There's all sorts of other different upgrades you can do to the car. There's turbo upgrades, and I'm sure there will be plenty of like billet internals on the market if there isn't already. But that's definitely beyond and defeats the purpose of OEM Plus. So all we did to the car under the hood was install an AMS cold air intake and the AMS heat exchanger. That and the exhaust system was it in terms of like power adders. Even though they're realistically not power adders, they're more of like efficiency gains. There is an additional option to upgrade the intercoolers, which I wouldn't be opposed to, but we honestly haven't had any heat issues, whether it was heat soak or just the car overheating really quick. The heat exchanger and cold air intake do a really great job of bringing in that fresh air and keeping it cool. It was just something we never like had an issue with, so it just didn't seem like it was worth it to us at the time. And then the other thing we did consider adding on was the AMS Alpha 5 package. And this is a kit that is full of great bolt-ons. It includes the exact cold air intake and the exact heat exchanger that we put on our car, but it also comes with a kit to run E85. Realistically, the only thing we're missing from the Alpha 5 kit is all the parts to run E85. Injectors, sensors, all that kind of stuff. But if you go that route, you absolutely need a custom tune as well. Which leads me to the final piece of our Z Build. So we originally put our VR Tune tuning box on the car, and that was awesome. These tuning boxes are great. They're a quick and easy plug and play add-on to squeeze a little extra juice out of your car. They plug in directly to the existing engine harness, and you mount the box somewhere safe that's away from heat. Equally, it's super easy to uninstall as well. In terms of performance, the biggest thing I noticed with the tuning box was that the throttle response was significantly improved. You just get there a lot quicker.
I gotta do a little pull. Oh yeah, she's spicier. I was not ready for that, I'll be honest.
So banging through gears became a lot more fun with the tuning box. It just felt like the car was actually finally starting to come alive. So we had all our fun with the tuning box, and we figured it was time to try something new. So we ended up going with the AMS ECU Quick Flash by EcuTech. AMS has a few options in terms of ECU flashing. What we did was the Quick Flash, and that's the most basic version of it. You can go from that all the way to a fully custom flash tune if you want things like multiple maps, maybe you have upgraded turbos, you run an E85, add a launch control, all sorts of things. We obviously just have our couple of bolt-ons and the exhaust, so the quick flash was plenty for us. So just as a reminder, if you do the Alpha 5 package and you run the E85 kit, you will need to get a custom ECU flash, but AMS states that kit plus the ECU flash will get your Z to 500 horsepower. So naturally, that got us pretty intrigued. We have most of the Alpha 5 package, obviously minus everything to run E85, but we're pretty dang close to it. So we figured it was time to strap the car on the dyno and see what she makes with all the bolt-ons and this new flash. Now keep in mind, we're running on 91 octane fuel and we're on our Mustang dyno that is notorious for reading out low power numbers. So low-key, we were ready to get our heart broken by the heartbreak dyno. So from the factory, the Z makes 400 horsepower and 350 foot-pounds of torque. I thought best case scenario, if we get to 450 horsepower and 440-ish foot-pounds of torque, we'll be in really good shape with everything we did to the car. Boy, was I wrong. The car did way better than I expected. It made 480 horsepower and 490 foot-pounds of torque. But I feel confident in saying that at the crank, the Z made 500 horsepower. And I get it. Crank horsepower is just horsepower before taxes. Wah, wah, wah. Last I checked, 500 horsepower is still 500 horsepower. But the best part is, with this tune and our exhaust, this is the loudest and most aggressive pops and bangs I think I've ever heard. I love it so much. After we dynoed it, I took the car out for just a test drive to feel it out. And I quickly realized we officially have an absolute ripper on our hands. I wasn't even going crazy, but the car just wanted to go and it just wanted more. So that being said, with all the goodies we put on the car, from the Aero Kit to the wheels to the Bolt Ons, super happy with where the car is. It is a lot of fun. It looks good. It feels good. It drives good. It just puts a smile on your face. What else could you ask for in a build? Isn't that what this is all about? You just want to enjoy our cars and have fun with them. But that, my friends, that's where the buck stops for us on our OEM Plus RZ34 Nissan Z Build. Genuinely was a ton of fun. We are super pleased with how the car turned out. And best of all, it makes a ton of power. As a reminder, links for all the parts we talked about today are in the description below. And don't forget to grab that extra discount code for our YouTube viewers only. So do yourself a favor, get that code so you can save yourself some money. If you enjoyed today's video, please give us a like and make sure you're subscribed. But that's all I got for you guys. Thank you so much for watching. I can't wait to see you guys next time. Peace.